All right, teammates. The Supreme Court just found in a unanimous decision that one state cannot take a presidential candidate off the ballot. And Super Tuesday results are in, and Trump is the Republican nominee. So tonight, I'm going to, since it's looking like it's going to be Biden versus Trump 2.0, what is the problem, Dean and Devin, with a Trump presidency? Dean, I'm going to start with you. What
Um,
is the problem with Trump 2.0?
I think the problem with the Trump 2.0, we kind of seen what happened with Trump the first time. I don't really think people kind of realize uh, the megalomaniac that we have in front of us. Uh,
Megalomaniac, that's a big word.
yeah.
So
It
you
puts
have to
you in,
break
it
it
puts
down
you in,
for me.
it puts you in the mindset of that's what they would call Hitler. And
Okay.
this kind of reminds me of that time period of them coming to power, that kind of Nazi party coming to power. But I always tell people a Trump presidency 2.0 won't look good for us as a people, not just because of Trump, but because of the Republicans that will be backing him. I don't really think it's Trump that we have to worry about, but it's the people that sit in Congress, that sit in the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House,
Hmm.
on our local elections. I mean, and I'm sure we'll get to that on
Yes.
this podcast, but you have to look and see what the Republicans are doing nationwide as far as like taking away people's rights.
Okay.
So imagine what would happen if they have all three branches of the government and we can't stop them. I'll just
So,
put.
so I mean, I think that is a very, very politically savvy answer. I'm certain that Devin completely followed everything you're saying. But the realty is the girls remember I was getting stimulus payments. I was getting a Donald Trump check because of the pandemic. I was getting a whole bunch of perks in my everyday life with that white man in that toupee in the office. Devin, what is the problem with giving him that power back? He was the one making sure his name was on the damn check.
Well, that was part of the reason why it took so long for the money to get there in the first place, because everything is about Donald Trump. The problem with having Donald Trump as president of the United
I'll speak to
States is
that.
that, right? The problem with having Donald Trump as president of the United States is that, generally speaking, let's ask folks: would you want Jocelyn Hernandez to be president of the United States? Would you want Needy Leaks to be president of the United States? I mean, really, like, this is someone who is a reality TV star. And so we have to recognize that there's a lack of legitimacy as him being president. The other piece is that many of the things that he's credited with were things that were put in place by the previous administration. Here's how presidents
Okay.
work. You see the most actions that you're seeing that you're saying, oh, Donald Trump did this, is actually credited to the president before them. And same thing with Obama and some of the things that he was able to do. He gets a credit for. Everybody might remember, if you're old enough, the bailout because of the 2008 recession. Well, that was actually done by the Bush administration, but people credit Obama with that. And so a lot of the things that you're crediting Donald Trump with, he didn't actually do. He just took credit for it, and he's very scammy. And
But then
we
along those
know
same
scammers
lines,
in our
the
community. So in the same way that we look at
wait,
scammers
wait,
in our
wait, wait,
community,
wait,
we
wait,
want
wait,
them to be
wait, wait, wait,
president.
wait, wait, wait. You can't drop the bombshells and then just be like, oh, well, let's move on. Okay, so you said a whole bunch in there. Now you said one president credited with the programs that a
Mhm.
previous administration put in place. So
Correct.
then has Joe Biden done enough?
hmm No, and I think that that's the challenge with Joe Biden, right? But the difference between Joe Biden and the difference between Donald Trump is one is bragging openly about being a dictator, and the other one is not. And so I think sometimes we think that we vote for presidents and then we just go home. It doesn't work that way. And so what we realize is that we have to advocate, we have to work for ourselves, we have to do more than just voting, right? But the work that we need to do in order to have the country and the communities that we want would be much easier under a Biden presidency as compared to a presidency under Donald Trump, where he is bragging about being a dictator and having an authoritative regime. And for those who don't know that, authoritative governments are like North Korea, Russia, some might argue China, right? And so those are not places that the girls are typically going to go visit, right? They go to Thailand, they go to Brazil. They're not going to authoritarian countries because nobody wants to live under that. And so
Okay.
that is the reality that we're facing with this president. the potential of that president becoming a president again. What I will also close with is white
Well, you
people.
can't close yet. We only 9 minutes into an
Well,
hour
this
long
piece,
show.
well, my statement, excuse me.
Oh,
The
okay, got it.
white supporters of Donald Trump staged an insurrection. So, like, we don't have to talk about any of the policies. We don't have to talk about any of the people stormed the nation's capital. They tried to kill the vice president of the United States. He tried to overthrow an election. So, like, let's just stop there.
I
And
would.
But
act
see,
like
hold
that's
hold
like
on, hold
something
on, hold on.
casual
Let
because
me.
it wasn't successful. But the fact of
Mhm.
the matter is that no one knows what it's like. We're seeing what's going on in overseas in other countries where they are actively in a level of crisis we have not seen in this country in quite some
But
time.
hold on. See,
People don't want to live under this.
that's my issue with political conversations. Hear me good, because Dean, I'm gonna come to you with this one.
Okay.
The real tea is people like me. I'm not looking overseas. I'm looking at my paycheck. I'm looking at my neighbor. I'm looking at my neighborhood. I don't look at Russia for anything. So the question for actual people is, why
Mhm.
would I care about any of this, Dean? Why do I need to
Well,
That's
care?
the wrong question.
you should care about it. I'm gonna put it like this. Look at the Inflation Reduction Act. None of the Republicans voted for that. They voted against it. So right now we're seeing a record high inflation, and the party of the Donald Trump decided that they did not want to pass that bill with Democrats. So the reason why all of your stuff is up, everything is expensive, is because they figured it was better to allow the American people to drown while they weren't in power than to allow them to actually succeed under a Democratic president. That always happens. Republicans are arsonists. They will burn down a country as long as they're not in power. That's what people need to learn. They also need to learn globalism is important because what we're paying here in the United States pales in comparison to what other countries are paying. Inflation is much higher in other countries. I know,
But but but
Let
again,
me let me get,
I know we're a little upset. I know we're a little upset about stuff. But again, can you blame President Biden when he had his party put out a bill for to reduce inflation, and the party of Donald Trump, who probably was spearheaded by Donald Trump, said, "Don't get that bill passed." So
but
can we
but
really be mad at
but
them
my
about
problem with because I think, if I could,
it?
I think that this is the reason why so many of the girls are not engaging in political conversations, because we have th- there is this group of us that I as a compliment in saying that you two belong to, that are so politically informed. Hear me good. Y'all are so politically informed. And so you're speaking to issues that I think the average person like me ain't even thinking about. So when I go into when I'm going into the voting booth, I'm just listening for it. I honestly believe that most of us are just listening for the name that means me the least amount of harm. And the litmus test for that for regular folks is very different than it is for those who are politically in the know, I think.
to some extent, I think we need to give our people more credit than that. The fact of the matter is that the reason why we have some of the conditions we have in this country is because politicians, including Donald Trump, have sent billions of your dollars overseas for war. The fact of the matter is we had kids in Decatur schools, right? Everybody heard about this. People saw that on ATL Scoop that were eating cheese sandwiches because there wasn't enough money to make sure that those kids had lunch. And if they couldn't pay the free lunch, pay their lunch, they had to eat a cheese sandwich. But we got money for bombs. Like that's on Instagram. Unless you live under a rock, you have seen a bomb level a community in Gaza with people screaming and crying and babies malnourished and this, that, and the third. And so you can choose to ignore that. But at some extent, we do have to push our people because that level of daftness, that level of like, oh, well, girl, I don't care, this, that, and the third. Well, that's why we have the type of country that we have. And so, like, people got to make a decision. Either you're going to not complain about the conditions you live under, or if you're going to complain about the conditions you live under, pick up a book. That's not, I'm sorry. I actually don't think that I'm not going to give the girls that type of pass. Like, because also we have a rich history as Black queer people of organizing and pushing this government to be better for all of us. And so, like, I don't buy that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Okay.
And
wouldn't
I feel
Okay.
like, and I feel
example,
like
Okay.
for
I
example,
don't
we
mind.
we
see
would,
everything
for
else.
example,
Yeah,
for
we can do
example,
everything else. Yeah,
we would not have survived the worst parts of the HIV epidemic if we were that like, oh girl, we don't care. I mean, like our community would have been annihilated, right? And
No,
so
I'm
the
not saying
idea,
no, I'm not saying the girls don't care, but I will clarify what I am saying after the break.
okay,
We
great.
got